Right now, we have former Ohio Governor and MSNBC political analyst John Kasich and former Assistant to the Secretary of Defense for Public Affairs Chris Marr. Gentlemen, good to have you both here. So, Governor, after that disastrous White House meeting, you posted a comment on social media that has gotten more than 1 million views, and you wrote, "Today's Oval Office meeting with Volodymyr Zelensky was shameful. President Zelensky represents a nation whose citizens have sacrificed their lives and shed blood for the freedoms they cherish. He deserves respect, not humiliation." And there are many who believe, sir, that embarrassing Zelensky on the global stage was the White House's intention. They deny it. But how do you interpret what Trump intended and accomplished in that meeting?
Well, I mean, just watching that meeting, I was, first of all, shocked, and secondly, sick to my stomach about what I saw there. You know, Alex, the problem is that America, since World War II, has provided some security guarantees to the free world, the people who believe in freedom of speech and free elections and human rights and all these things, free enterprise. We've provided the security guarantees so people felt comfortable that we were going to look out for them, that they have to do their part, but they were going to look out for them. My greatest concern right now is, have we created a trust problem? In other words, the countries around the world say, we don't know what we're going to get from the United States. And my concern about that, Alex, is the fact that with that sort of question, then sometimes countries are going to decide to go it alone. And some of these nations, if you take the Baltics, for example, they don't have the means to raise large armies. They're going to be looking for what they can do to make sure that they're protected. What I hope is going to happen is this moment is going to force us as Americans to take another look. Because once you open the genie from the bottle, where does this go? And America's role has been crucial in the world in keeping the peace since World War II. And, of course, we were there to dramatically help win that war. It wasn't for us, I don't think it would have been won. So the fact is, countries have come to depend on us, and it's because we share the same ethic. We have the Western ethic that believes in freedom. And I get very concerned that this trust, and it's hard to rebuild trust. That's my concern. I don't think it's over yet, but we've got to be very careful that we don't head down this road and let everybody sort of fend for themselves. And you add to that, Alex, these trade wars that are being talked about now that creates more problems, more inflation, more conflict. We've got to be very careful here.
Yeah. Sobering commentary there, but yeah. All right. Chris, you traveled to Ukraine with Secretary Austin several times during the war. What is your reaction to what you saw in that meeting Friday?
Yeah, I mean, I think Governor Kasich hit the nail on the head. I mean, what we witnessed on Friday was embarrassing for the United States. It was disgusting. You're talking about President Zelensky, who for the last 3 years has been fighting for the future of his country, fighting for the values that the United States of America believes in, democracy. You know, it used to be that the United States would stand up for those values, would stand up and help defend our allies and partners, and stand up against bullies and dictators like Vladimir Putin. Instead, the opposite now seems to be true, unfortunately.
So one of the things, Governor, that Zelensky tried to get through to Trump is that this isn't just about Ukraine, but it's about standing up to an autocrat, fighting for the same freedoms that generations of Americans have fought and died for. And yet today, the Kremlin praised the U.S. for what it has characterized as changing its foreign policy to align with Moscow. What is your response to that?
It's just not conceivable to me. I served on the Armed Services Committee. Most people kind of remember me from the Budget Committee, but I was on the Armed Services Committee in Washington for 18 years. And there was one thing that was consistent, whether you're Republican, Democrat, whether you argued about kind of the military activities that needed to take place, the weapons we needed to buy, but there was always one fundamental agreement, that the Russians were our enemy. And they asked Ronald Reagan when he was running for president, how do you feel about the Soviet Union? He said, we win, they lose. I mean, the idea that we are changing this is very concerning to me. Europe, interestingly enough, they now view this as an existential threat. Now, should they have bellied up to the bar years earlier and carried more of the burden? Absolutely. But now I think what they're saying, and I hope they'll follow through on this, is that now is the time for them to jointly come together. Because remember, they live close to the bear. We live on the other side of the ocean. That's one of the things that Zelensky was trying to say. But you know what? The ocean didn't save us from 9/11. The ocean isn't going to save us from certain threats if we're not on top of things, cyber threats. But at the same time, I think it's significant that the Europeans are saying, we're not going along with this. And what Zelensky wanted from President Trump was a security guarantee. We all want to see peace, but you can't have peace at any price. You've got to have security guarantees so the Russians, when they're refreshed, don't want to move again. That's what the Europeans are worried about. It's what we should be extremely worried about. And I've not lost hope yet. Maybe there is an opportunity for us to step back from the ledge and realize our commitment to the world really matters and has kept the peace since World War II.
Well, I do appreciate that sentiment a lot. But picking up on that, Chris, because at today's meeting, Britain and France said they are going to work with Ukraine to develop a peace plan and then present it to the U.S. And UK Prime Minister Starmer saying any peace agreement is going to need a U.S. backstop. What could the terms of this deal look like? And do you think Starmer and Macron can convince President Trump to come on board with it?
Well, I think that's precisely the problem that we're dealing with now. You know, the governor mentioned the tariff situation. How can leaders in other countries trust what Donald Trump tells them when he continues to go back on agreements that he's already made? The United States is now stepping out of this process. Just last administration, we were leading this process to get Ukraine the peaceful security guarantees that it's looking for. We're now abdicating that responsibility, and so we're leaving it into other people's hands. Thankfully, the European countries like the UK, like France and others, see the real threat that Russia is, not just to Europe, but to the international rules-based order. And that's critical to be eyes wide open about who we're dealing with. Vladimir Putin has shown us time and time and time again who he really is. He's a ruthless, bloodthirsty dictator who's not going to stop at Ukraine, and he's going to keep going until he gets what he wants. He's not going to abide by these agreements, and so we need to be careful when we're entering into agreements with him, what we're really getting ourselves into.
Governor, on Meet the Press earlier today, Speaker Mike Johnson said that Zelensky acted inappropriately at the meeting and showed insufficient gratitude. Take a listen to what he said.
I hope and pray, frankly, that President Zelensky will come to his senses, come back to President Trump, express gratitude as he should, apologize for his behavior there, and accept this mineral rights deal, because that is the best way for us to get to a point of peace over there in that region. Either he needs to come to his senses and come back to the table in gratitude, or someone else needs to lead the country to do that.
And look, Johnson's comments, they echo the Republicans who've backed Trump, scolded Zelensky after the meeting. What do you make of this reaction from fellow Republicans? What do you want to say to them?
Where are the Republican senators? There has been a history in the United States Senate, people like Bob Dole, Senator Lugar. There's been a history of people there who've been able to operate independently, basically, from the executive. You know, in our country today, the Congress has gone totally silent. And so the executive has all the authority. These senators are on record having said a number of things about Ukraine, a number of things about Putin. I don't know where they are. I saw where Senator Murkowski did say some things. But where are the leaders there to be able to meet with Trump, even privately and quietly, and take us back? Think about this, and Alex, you know, you think about those children, those Ukrainian children in those air raid shelters, experiencing bombings, frightened out of their minds. Are they ever going to have a life? How are they going to recover from this? We talk about PTSD. Think about the children there. Think about the women and the men who have given up their lives for freedom. That's all they're doing. They're fighting against an authoritarian dictator. And we're going to be saying that Zelensky overreacted. He's the leader of a country that's paying in blood and death for their people to maintain their freedom. Knock it off, politicians. Come on. It's as clear as anything we can see. And come on, senators, speak up. Do your job.
Speaking of politicians, can you give me just very quickly in 15 seconds your sentiments around your fellow Ohioan, our Vice President, J.D. Vance?
Well, I think what happened in the Oval Office is something that we're going to think about forever, and it's unfortunate. And as you know, I don't like to get into personal attacks, and I won't. I have never done it, and I'm not going to do it. I mean, I have an opinion, but people can form their own here. I'm not trying to dodge anything, but I don't want to operate in a time where I just don't want to attack people personally. I question their judgment. I question where they are. That's okay. But I don't want to get into any sort of name calling. It's not who I am, by the way.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your authenticity. It's why we bring you back on the show, former Governor John Kasich. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Chris
very
Marr,
much.
good to see you as well.